Good day, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the first monochord that I ever built. Alright, so what seemed like forever ago, I came across a video on YouTube of Pythagorean monochords, and this gentleman playing his immaculately built, is just beautiful work of art of an instrument, and it just was amazing. I love to meditate to it. I just love to have it on in the background, and I still listen to it to this day. But what it inspired me to do was to try and build my own. This instrument is a lot smaller than the bed monochord I ultimately ended up making. I don't even know, I don't have a measurements on me, but it's over 2 feet long, it's a solid foot wide, and as you can see, it's maybe 4 inches thick. It was made with all off-the-shelf stuff from Home Depot, Home Hardware, like you can get at any building supply store. And so we'll just briefly break it down, because it's funny that this is the longest lasting one I've ever built, and it was the first one that I made. It still sounds fantastic. It still has the original strings on it, which are now, I think, close to 8 years old, and it still play fine. This instrument is made from, it has pine sides. The pin blocks are made of oak. Yes, they're made of oak. So we've got pine on the sides, oak pin blocks. The top and bottom, you can see, the top and bottom are just made from an inexpensive fiberboard, almost like a thin plywood that has an oak veneer on it. It's fairly inexpensive. I honestly don't remember what the price was I paid for it, but I know that this entire instrument was less than, was it $75, I think. So we have the top and bottom is this veneered sort of press board kind of material, plywood, and it actually does resonate very well considering it's a composite. For the tuning here, this was before I discovered zither pins, and I actually prefer this to zither pins. To you why here. So these are bolts, or like hex-headed screws, and because they have a heavy, because the screw, like the spiral on the screw, is quite heavy in comparison to a zither pin, which is almost smooth. It has very fine grooves going around it. These ones are actually much more difficult to turn, and I like that a lot, because the one thing I have found is that the zither pins almost inevitably end up loosening over time. Even if I'm using maple, oak, beech, like these really, really hard, dense hardwoods, the zither pins always end up slipping. They always do. And it takes time. We're talking hundreds of hours of playing, but eventually they loosen up. And then you have to lard the next size up in zither pins. You have to drill out the hole to fit the next size, and you start over again. And it can become very time consuming and very annoying to do. These are the original ones. I've tuned this to many different notes using these exact same bolts, the same holes. They have been 100%. Like, they're just, my advice to everybody who's out there who's building these at home is definitely to look into doing this. It's a real pain in the butt to drill the holes in these. You need a drill press, you need something to clamp each bolt down, but it is definitely worth doing. I mean, you can always take these bolts to a milling shop and they can actually drill them for you as well. On the other end so these are, don't know the technical term for them, the pins that hold the back of the strings on. These particular ones are brass. I milled these myself. Basically just drilled them out. These were very difficult to make, and I had to make them myself because I couldn't find an equivalent online that would except the guitar string. I could have just drilled a hole through, but then the ball on the end of the guitar string, the like little loop, would be hanging off of each one, and I wanted it to look cleaner, and I was worried that they were going to get caught and break. So I made these ones specially for the instrument. It's just brass rod stock, very simple to find. It's a little expensive. I would not use brass in the future. I would probably go with aluminum, easier to work with, cheaper. But that's how that's done, and it worked out quite well. The bridges are maple. I believe the bridges are maple. Super basic bridge design, super poor bridge design, but it was my first instrument, so that's that. Okay, so we'll go to the construction, because this is a super simple construction. So basically it started out with just, these are the stock width of the board, as is the pin blocks. The pin blocks are stock width. This is stock width, so I didn't have to rip cut anything. It's exactly the way I got it from the store. All I had to do was cut it to length. It is the most basic box construction, super simple. We've got the sides, which are, right, they're just glued to the pin blocks, and then the top, which was cut with a circular saw to fit this, and they were attached with a combination of glue and nails. Now, the nails are redundant, and I knew that after the fact. Once I learned a little bit more about making instruments and stuff, like, you don't put nails in it. The glue would have sufficed. And the last thing I did for the body of it was go around it with a router, just to round off all the corners. It just makes it look finished, because it was pretty rough. They have 3 sound holes, accented with white paint, super simple. These are, I drilled the holes before it was attached, and then the white paint was simply applied with different size cans than I had. So I had a can that was that size. I just put it over there, put some spray paint in there. Same with all of these. And that's that. The one big issue I have with this, the one thing I learned from this particular instrument was that the bridges need to sit on the pin blocks, or you need a support in them, because when I initially tuned this, I used piano wire. It wasn't even piano wire, it was just hardware wire that I had laying around. And I was trying to get a higher note, but I only had a thicker string. And what ended up happening is the bridges ended up warping. Like, so they would sort of cave in the top of this a little bit, and it made it impossible to tune. So after I learned my lesson with the bridges, these new strings, these guitar strings that I got, were not tightened nearly as high. And what I actually discovered is that I enjoy the lower toned instruments better. I generally find the higher toned monochords to be a little bit grating on my ears. It's a personal thing. I know a lot of these instruments have amazing sounds and they are higher note. It's just I can't listen to them and relax. I find the higher tones tend to put me on edge a little bit. So I like the lower notes. So going with these strings, which are actually bass strings, really made a difference. They're not tightened as tight. The sustain on them is fantastic. They were very expensive. The string, I think I spent just over $75 just for the strings on this instrument. You could easily do this with piano wire at a fraction of the cost. The sustain won't be as great, but it's much cheaper. But I'm glad I invested in the guitar strings for this. So I recently put up a video on the channel of this instrument being played. It's in 8 hours so that you can listen to it as you sleep. I think it's about the 36-minute mark when the visual turns off and it's just a black screen, so you can just, there's a link in the comment that takes you straight there. So if you're going to sleep and you want to listen to it, you can just click on that. It'll take you to the 36 minutes and then you'll have 7.5 hours of uninterrupted playing. It is a loop of 2 hours of playing. So it really sounds almost all the same anyways. But I just threw that up there just for anybody who wants to fall asleep to it or wants extremely long meditation. But yeah, so that's that. That's the instrument. It is amazing to play. I'm still kind of boggled that it was the first one I built. The second one I built, the pin block split right in half because it was under so much tension. I tried to use a softwood for that, and it just was a hilarious catastrophic failure that I wish I had on video. But this one has weathered all of my moves. It's weathered all the different shops. It's collected dust, been cleaned, been, you know, taken all the strings off, restrung it. It is, yeah, it served me quite well. And this entire instrument, minus the strings, was less than $100 to build. So it can be very inexpensive. And one of the things that I hope that everybody takes away from my videos about the Monochords, that it doesn't have to be perfect in order for it to sound amazing. This is some of the lowest quality materials you can use. Just like my budget-friendly Monochord, which was a more complicated build, a much larger instrument. But this is an afternoon project at most, maybe minus milling the hex screws and the end pins. But if you decide to use the other pins, then it's still an afternoon build. But it's full of errors. It's not perfect. You don't have to be perfect when you're making something like this. If you're planning on playing this in front of thousands of people, then you might want to put more time into it or buy a really nice expensive one. But at the end of the day, it's all about the sound you get from it. And if it plays beautifully, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter the materials you use. So long as you get enjoyment out of building it, enjoyment out of playing it, that's all that matters. So that's the takeaway I really hope everybody gets from the videos about the Monochords. And I don't know how many more videos I'm going to put up about them. I've really done all I can do with what I have on hand, maybe except for retuning this to the different chakra notes and putting that up on there. I may do that in the future. I may try some higher frequencies. I may try and get lower, maybe using like cello strings or something like that. But I just wanted to tell everybody sort of where this started, sort of the original instrument that started it all for me and my love of this droning meditation music. And there. Thank you for watching, and I will throw, I guess it would be somewhere here or here. My left and rights are all mixed up on this monitor, but at any rate, up here, well, somewhere, there's going to be a link to this being played for the 8-hour video. Give it a listen. If you like it, use it. If not, move on. So I just thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and I'm so happy and pleased and privileged to be able to share this with everybody. Thank you.